Hey folks, I'm Mr. Hartzler, and this is now part 2, multiplying and dividing, and this all has to do with stuff with exponents. So I have some examples. It's pretty much where we're going to start. I have a to the 4th b squared all over some a's and b's here. The important part to remember is that I only care about the a's with the a's, and then I care about the b's with the b's. So if I'm dividing these two a's, a to the 4th over a to the negative 1, right? A to the 4th over a to the negative 1. If I'm dividing them, I subtract their exponents. So a to the 4 minus a negative 1. Well, double negatives mean that that's actually a plus. So I have a to the 5th for my a's. Then with my b's, I have b squared over b to the negative 3. Well, just like with the other ones, that's b squared, and then I'm going to subtract a negative 3, which gets me b to the 5th. And since both those numbers are positive, my a to the 5th and b to the 5th, that means that they're both going to be on top. If those were negative numbers, I'd have to move them back down. Let's look at my next chunk here. I have y to the negative 3 times y squared times y to the negative 1. Since all of these are being multiplied, I need to add up their exponents. So y to the negative 3 plus 2 plus a negative 1. Negative 3 plus 2 gets me y to the negative 1, and then I still have to add that other negative 1, and I get y to the negative 2. Now, sometimes it wants the answer like this. Sometimes it wants that answer to have a positive exponent, so I have to change it. And I do that by moving it below a division bar. So if I move that down to the denominator, it makes that exponent positive. Because it started off negative, so if I move across that, it changes to positive. Or if I was negative in the bottom, it would move positive when I moved it up. And then I'm just going to put a 1 on top because there's no number out in front. If there's a 5 out in front, I'd leave a 5 on top. Let's look at our next one here. X to the negative 8 over x to the negative 7. I'm dividing, so I need to subtract their exponents. X to the negative 8 minus a negative 7. Double negatives mean I'm adding that 7. But negative 8 plus 7 still just gets me a negative 1. Again, they sometimes don't like the answer like that. Sometimes we want it like 1 over x to the positive 1, but I don't have to write that exponent. Let's go and check out just a couple more examples. Here I've got a whole bunch of letters. Don't let that make you nervous. I only need to focus on my P's, then my Q's, then my R's. So for the P's, I have a negative 3, and I'm dividing that, so I'm going to subtract a negative 2. Then I have Q's. I have a 5 on top, and since I'm dividing by just normal Q, that means it's a 1, and if I'm dividing, that means I'm subtracting. And then I have R's. I have R to the 6th on top, and I'm dividing by a negative 4, which means I'm subtracting a negative 4. Now I just need to clean this up. P, negative 3 minus a negative 2, double negatives, I get a negative 1. Q, I have a 5 minus 1, that gets me 4. And then R, 6 minus a negative 4. Double negatives again, that gets me a 10. We're almost done. I actually don't like that this one's negative. I usually like it to be positive. So I'm going to have to move that down to the bottom. You know how the Q has a positive exponent already, and so does my R? I'm going to leave them alone. They stay in my numerator, or the top part of my fraction. That P, though, negative exponent, it moves down. And it becomes a positive when I move it to the bottom. And I have my next one here. I have 10 on top and 10 to the negative 2 on bottom. Well, that's like a 10 to the 1st over a 10 to the negative 2. And what do I do with same bases? Subtract their exponents when I'm dividing. So I have 10 to the 1 minus a negative 2. Double negatives mean that's 10 cubed. Well, and I actually know what that number is. That's 1,000. That's really easy to punch into a calculator or know off the top of your head. And that's it, folks. That is all I have for you. Hopefully this was helpful. And if it was, click that like button down below.